Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So apparently there is a second Russian Trump dossier. There's another one. This is The Guardian, but one of the most interesting parts to this dossier is saying that the FBI is vetting this dossier. The FBI is trying to discern if there's anything in this dossier that's legit or that's real. Apparently, there's some elements in this dossier that are corroborated in the other dossier, or reversely, they corroborate one another, including one very particular point, that this was also done by somebody who was a part of the Clinton team back in the 90s. Meaning that in the first dossier, Clinton paid for it, meaning her campaign literally paid for the dossier that was able to get this kind of Trump and Russia investigation to kick off in the first place. And now they have a second Trump-Russia dossier that was also, in some way, interacting with the Clinton campaign. Come on, man. Come on. Like, I understand you look at this stuff and you say, they're trying to say that Donald Trump, he bought a prostitute, and that prostitute peed on the bed. Now, see, I kept thinking that the prostitute peed on Donald Trump. Prostitute didn't pee on Donald Trump. She peed on the bed. And she peed on the bed because Obama slept in the bed. And Donald Trump hated Obama so much that he just wanted to watch this woman defile the bed that Obama slept in. We're not having to talk about policy. We're not having to talk about real things that actually adversely affect human beings. We're not having to talk about any of that stuff. We're having to talk about a second dossier that was also in some way connected with his political opponent, his political rival. This is gross. This is gross. Let's take a look. Let's go through the story. Second Trump dossier being assessed by the FBI. Exclusive memo written by the former journalist Cody Shearer independently sets out some of the allegations made by ex-spy Christopher Steele. Now, this is the other part. We don't know why they believe it's independently confirmed, but that's what they went with. The FBI inquiry into the alleged Russian collusion in the 2016 U.S. presidential election has been given a second memo and independently sets out some of the same allegations made in a dossier by Christopher Steele, the British former spy. The second memo was written by Cody Shearer, a controversial political activist and former journalist who was close to the Clinton White House in the 1990s. Unlike Steele, Shearer doesn't have a background in espionage, and his memo was initially viewed with skepticism, not least because he has shared it with select media organizations before the election. However, The Guardian has been told that the FBI investigation is still assessing the details in the Shearer memo and is pursuing intriguing leads. One source with knowledge of the inquiry said that the fact that the FBI was still working on it suggests the investigators had taken an aspect of it seriously. It raises the possibility that parts of the Steele dossier, which have been derided by Trump supporters, may have been corroborated by Shearer's research, or could still be. The revelations comes at the moment when Donald Trump and some Republican lawmakers have been seeking to cast doubt on the credibility of Mueller investigation and the motivation of the FBI in examining the Russian collusion, including unproven allegations that the investigators had a bias in favor of Hillary Clinton when the investigation was initially launched before November. Yes, it was launched by an Obama White House who put Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. Yeah, you're saying they had a bias, but they're using a but. Usually when they put a but in a sentence, but indicates that the thing coming behind it is kind of the opposite. Like, this sentence is disproving the previous sentence. That doesn't disprove anything. It was launched initially before November. The Obama administration, is there any unclarity at all on who Obama was going for in this election? Is there any unclarity on who Obama was supporting in this election? Is the Democratic president who put Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State in that office, is there any impetus for that Democratic president to do something to tar his opponent or get information on his opponent or his party's political opponent? Let's say it that way. The answer, of course, is yes. Of course there is. Of course there's an impetus to look in on what Donald Trump was doing. And the idea that you took something that was political opposition research and turned it into some kind of investigation into Donald Trump looks a little weird to me. that looks a little weird to a lot of us. It's not just Donald Trump supporters. It looks as if you're trying to back up your candidate, the person who you yourself wanted, who you yourself put into that State Department. It looks like the elements that are in that government, that were democratic elements of the government itself, was behaving in favor of one of the candidates in the campaign. That's what it looks like. So, making the argument that it's unproven, the entire dossier is unproven. Like it's an amazing thing to say that it's unproven. It was like they're trying to cast doubts on the credibility of Mueller's inquiry, but this is unproven. None of this has been proven. If this had been proven, Donald Trump would have been perp-walked out of the White House. Donald Trump hasn't been perp-walked out of the White House. Do you honestly believe that for the year and a half that they've been screaming about this Trump and Russia thing, that if they found any smoking gun, if they found any collusion, if they found anything that makes a tether between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, that they would not have perp-walked Donald Trump out of that office with all of the forces that are allied against him, with all of the people that hate his guts? Do you honestly believe that Trump will still be in that office right now if they had the link that they're consistently screaming about? What we have is a report that was paid for as opposition research by the Clinton campaign, his political opponent. We have another memo that's also is uncooperated, that the FBI is looking into and vetting, apparently. And this also has connections with the Clinton campaign. What am I missing? What am I missing? And it just so happens that these unnamed sources from both of these documents came up with similar information. Is it possible that they're the same source? Is it possible, to any degree that's possible, that it's the same source? I don't know if you remember this, during the run-up after 9/11, when Bush was coming up with reasons to go to war, Dick Cheney would go to the media, and Dick Cheney would tell them some kind of inside information. And then Dick Cheney would later go on a news show and reference the inside information that some news reporter just kind of parroted out from Dick Cheney or the offices of Dick Cheney himself. They were being played. The media was being played. In this case, they're acting like this is completely independent investigations that took place on completely parallel trains, even though the inciting factor in both of those investigations is the Clinton campaign. What am I missing? Or let's say maybe not necessarily the inciting factor in the secondary one, but at the very least, the link between these two things is the Clinton campaign. It's not an independent investigation because both of those things are connected to Hillary Clinton. They're political rivals. What am I missing? What am I missing? Let's keep going. Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee voted on Monday night to release a highly contentious memo commissioned by the Republican chairman of the committee, Devin Nunes. The memo reportedly claims the FBI had anti-Trump bias when it sought a warrant from the United States Foreign Surveillance Court, essentially FISA court, to collect intelligence on Carter Page, an advisor to the Trump campaign. The FISA court is a secret court that examines law enforcement requests to surveil Americans suspected of acting as foreign agents. They use this to spy on the Trump campaign. Now, when Donald Trump said, "I'm being wiretapped," yes, it's somewhat of an antiquated term, but what he meant was they're spying on my campaign, and Donald Trump was shown to be correct in this. They were spying on his campaign, using this fig leaf of Russian collusion in order to create a pretext for them to be able to do this. They're going to release this memo. At the very least, if Republicans aren't hacks, which I think they are hacks, but if they aren't hacks to the degree where they're just going to lie and be like, hey, this memo shows that this guy is innocent, then if you're going to say you have a memo that shows this innocent, you have to release the memo. It doesn't matter what else comes from it. You have to release the memo. If Donald Trump doesn't release this memo, then it makes it look, it sheds a little bit more into this idea that this memo showed Donald Trump's innocence. All of these people have political dogs in the hunt. This is all I'm saying on this. Democrats have a political dog in the hunt because, they want to tar their opposition. And let's be honest, this idea that the president of the United States is illegitimate makes it look as if your candidate didn't lose on her own merits. It made it look like there was some kind of collusion that caused your candidate to lose as opposed to her just failing outright. Trump and Republicans, from their standpoint, in no way want this to continue. They want this thing to go away. Meaning, if this thing comes out that can clear Donald Trump's name by showing this kind of corruption in the FBI, they should release it. If they don't release it, it puts a little bit more suspicion on whether or not the document or the memo does what they said the memo does. The new memo, or the new quote-unquote dossier, this stuff is not corroborated. I mean, ultimately, you have a gossip column that was written about the President of the United States, and the FBI is chasing down the leads on whether or not, I guess, due diligence to make sure, to see whether there's any credibility to the elements of that particular memo. Calling it a second dossier, saying that these things were independently verified. We don't even know the people who are, the unnamed sources that are in the documents themselves, these nefarious agents. I asked the question, I'm going to leave it with this question. How do you know that the sources for these things was not the same source? How do you know? In the same way Dick Cheney would give a story, then come out and reference the story that Dick Cheney himself gave in the news to make it look as if that this thing is in the news and somebody else brought this, the story up. How do you know this is not the same thing? The trough to this, meaning the meeting point to this, is the Clinton campaign. One, she paid for outright. The other one was connected to her campaign. Why am I going to believe the elements that are going to be in this particular dossier if the last dossier had this fantastic stuff with Donald Trump purchasing a hooker and being so angry at Obama, he's letting the hooker pee on the bed while he watches? I mean, this stuff is so salacious. If there's anything to be said for it, then the FBI needs to present the information showing that there's something to be said for it, meaning there's reality to it. Until they present something showing that there's reality to the document, I continue with the same idea that this stuff is politically motivated and they're just doing it to try to delegitimize the President of the United States. So, this is not any kind of full-throated support of Trump in the least. I think he's been a fucking horrible at his job. In no way has he lived up to what he said he was going to do for the people who were stupid enough to vote for him. But that's kind of besides the point. This is one of the parties trying to take out the person who a large segment of the population chose to be in that office. Whether I think he's unfit for the office or not is somewhat besides the point. I don't like this idea of this politically charged impeachment, or it looks what they're trying to do, or trying to take him out of that office. And I certainly have no belief that Mike Pence is going to be a better person in this way. So, second PP dossier apparently. I'll put the link at the bottom. You can make your own judgment. But I would argue that until there's something that corroborates the information that's in this dossier, this seems to just be this kind of continued politically motivated hit job that these guys are doing and that the media is falling over themselves in order to cover. So, and I know I'm covering it also, but I'm covering it also because I guess I am an aspect of media. I'm just making a point that they love this. Like, this is monetarily motivated. It's this thing of, we've been screaming about this for a year and a half. We don't have anything to show for it. So any little bit of information that comes up on this, we're going to present it to try to show that we haven't been lying to the public for a year and a half. You've been lying to the public for a year and a half. The PP dossier in no way makes this work. And it's one thing if the FBI comes out and says the Scheer memo is right. There are elements that are corroborated and we can demonstrate XYZ. That is not taking place at all. None of that has taken place. They have unnamed sources. They have mysterious anonymous figures who are giving information from the shadows. Until there's something a little bit more concrete, I believe this is a political hit job. And I continue to believe it. So, I will leave it at that. Alright guys, have a good one.